Hello, I'm Joe Kaufman, CEO of AgencySparks, and I apologize in advance for my voice. But I am here with Keith Duprey, who is the Director of Segment Marketing for Interface. Welcome, Keith. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me, Joe.
Absolutely. Well, before we go too deep into this, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do for Interface, and how you got there? Tell us a little bit about your background, Keith.
Sure. Well, I joined Interface about 15 months ago. I came from Turner Broadcasting here in Atlanta, where I was responsible for new products and innovation and strategy for that group. Before that, Delta Airlines, overseeing some of their loyalty programs. And then before that, at Emory University at the Boys Business School, doing some marketing for exec ed. And I came to Interface because of the remarkable culture they have around sustainability. And also because I felt like I could help bring some rigor as it pertains to kind of relationship marketing to the brand.
Great. So tell us a little bit more about Interface. I know many folks are familiar, but tell us a little bit about you mentioned the culture, but what does Interface do? And then talk a little bit about that culture and how that formed and where it is today.
Sure. So interface, which is a slightly confusing word because a lot of people associate kind of computer or technology with that term, and it's not so far from the truth in the sense that our founder, Ray Anderson, was a Georgia Tech grad, and he was an engineer by trade or by education. And so when he worked for another large carpet manufacturer, but he kind of saw in Europe that there was the ability to take this broad loom kind of large-scale carpet and actually make it a little bit more efficient by manufacturing carpet tiles. So by definition, we today are the largest manufacturer of sustainable carpet tiles in the world. But that really, the sustainability part really came from an epiphany Ray Anderson had back in the 90s, where he really wanted to kind of make a commitment after reading some various literature about kind of where the world was going with regard to natural resources. And he really wanted to get our company focused on the idea of actually getting off petroleum. And so he kind of challenged the company to think about having kind of a no impact to our environment by the year 2020, manufacturing carpet, which is a huge challenge, but it really kind of got our company really focused on innovation to try to meet that challenge. And that's really what our culture has grown to be. Always was kind of an innovation culture, but it's innovation and obviously a lot of heart because we care about what we're doing to the world through the kind of the manufacturing process.
Great. So tell me a little bit about what your role is with the company and how did you begin interfacing with Interface? What do you do there for them specifically?
Sure. And so I guess it's important to note that my husband and I adopted a child about 2.5 years ago, and during that time I was working at Turner and really wanted to make a change in my career so that I could really justify leaving my beautiful son at home every day. And so when I started looking at different companies and cultures, Interface came to the forefront as a company that I'd really be proud to work with. They were looking at the time for someone who could really help their approach to diversifying their business into various segments. One of the largest segments that we have at Interface that we focus on is kind of this corporate interiors. But alongside of that are a number of other types of segments that are very important to us that a lot of building is going on in, including education, healthcare, multifamily, government, retail, etc. And so my job specifically is to really help the company understand these target audiences and these different segments and industries and how they're alike or different, and try to create kind of relevant marketing campaigns to get them to actually purchase more carpet.
Great, 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 great. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, I know that you have experience from your past working with various different agencies. You actually even worked at an agency for a brief time as well. So talk to me a little bit about how you go about working with agencies. How do you find agencies? What do you lean on them to do and provide for you that you couldn't necessarily provide in-house?
Sure. So I guess my perspective on agencies started most notably at Goizueta Business School, where we actually hired an agency to come in and really help us rebrand after Roberta Goizueta had provided a substantial amount of money to actually name the school or have naming rights to the school. And through that process, it was really clear that internal kind of stakeholder interviews were really necessary to understand kind of what people associated with the brand there, and then also a lot of external interviewing to understand what people were perceiving the brand as. And with Roberto Goizueta working at Coca-Cola and his kind of international global mentality, it just allowed us a really great jumping off point. But it was the agency that really brought in that rigor around understanding kind of what the brand kind of needed to be, or based on kind of interviews. From there, I worked with Digitas at Delta, and Digitas really brought an amazing amount of analytics that allowed us to do a lot of modeling and a lot of forecasting, and then a lot of process around return on investment. So between those two agencies, really helped me understand the differences in agencies, and also this idea of core capabilities that each agency kind of brings to the conversation. And so really for me now, I really look at what the need is, if it's a broad strategic need or is it kind of a more short-term project-based need, and really understanding what it is that they bring to the conversation with regard to their experience. So for me, I really typically start out with understanding what my need is, and then trying to find agencies that kind of have experience in that particular kind of project, if you will.
Yep, for sure. So what kinds of things do you lean on the agency to do if assuming that it's like a project-based need versus a broader strategic relationship? Or are there certain things that you feel are appropriate to, quote, outsource to the agency versus having those capabilities in-house? Are there certain things you feel like are so core to your business that you would never lean on an agency for?
It's a good question. I guess it really depends on kind of the situation that I'm in. I currently have done an RFP for an agency to help with a campaign that we started internally, but we really needed an agency with more experience and capabilities with understanding our target audience. So I think that we have an opportunity at Interface to start understanding our customer decision journey a lot better. And so I'm really, part of this project on the surface is really just coming up with an integrated strategic marketing plan, the media that we want to buy as part of that, and go on our merry way. But really the underlying issue is that we needed to understand more about our target audience to make sure that we were understanding what channels they preferred, how they researched the topic of flooring, and really where could we insert ourselves in the conversation to really add value. And so for me currently, we are a pretty lean marketing organization at Interface, but there's data that we have and certain sales processes that are just kind of core to who we are. But really for this, I needed to have some external help to do some primary and secondary research at the beginning.
Great. So there's a study that was recently done by RPA and USA Today, and one of the quotes from the study said that 98% of agencies and clients agree that trust leads to great marketing or advertising, yet a lot of agencies and clients don't necessarily always have the best trust between each other. So I guess the question for you is, talk to me about how you build trust with the agencies that you work with so that you can get a better output from them.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, I guess, output from that study. For me, even back again when I first started here in Atlanta with Goizueta and the agency we worked with there, I tend to be very transparent and very candid and very direct. And I think that in general that leads to really healthy conversations. And at the end of the day, I think it's pretty clear that I want what's best for my organization in general. And I think just that type of authenticity allows the agencies to see quickly that we are here together to do some good work. And I think part of also building that trust is if you have a shared vision and they really do understand and feel like they're able to identify the core problem, that when you create that kind of working collaboration, you lead to them having a vested interest as well. I think it's important to have kind of key metrics to tie to these types of activities that keeps everyone kind of focused on the goal at hand. And I think that's what really builds the trust. I think part of that is also project management. I think that is a really critical skill to working with an agency. I need to believe that the agency that I'm working with is kind of scheduling the meetings, allocating the resources, capturing the kind of key takeaways from meetings, such that I feel like they are absolutely in touch with what is happening or needs to happen or what is not happening, as the case may be.
Sometimes clients are put off a little bit when they see the line item in the budget that says 20% of my budget is being spent on account management and project management. But it sounds like you're not really put off by that because you understand that that's part of being efficient and getting the best ideas and getting the best execution. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, it's critical. I guess there could be situations where project management on the client side is really exquisite, but I find that that's not always the case unless you work for a really operationally minded company. Delta had that kind of that skill and that kind of discipline, but many places don't. So again, working with some of the best agencies, you really see how they do manage their resources so well, and that's just something that I think is inherent in the agency world that doesn't always translate into certain marketing departments.
Sounds good. So talk to me really quickly about finding and connecting with agencies. How do you typically find agencies and connect with them, and what are some of the key things you're looking for when you're looking for agency partners?
Having been in Atlanta now for over 15 years, and I think one of the remarkable scenarios I found myself in was being on the board with you, Joe, on the Atlanta Interactive Marketing Association and many other kind of leading marketers in Atlanta. I think it's relationships. I tend to go to people I trust who have worked in the marketing community in Atlanta for a long time. There's always new agencies and there's new leaders in the conversation, so I think it's important to stay kind of connected to the community at large. But I typically start by reaching out to friends and colleagues that I respect to kind of get an initial idea of who they're working with and why. Mm-hmm. But that's just kind of where I start. Doesn't mean that that's the only place that you should start, but it's typically where I start.
Do you, as part of that process, kind of as an ongoing thing, read agency blogs, or do you seek out agency content, or is it something that if somebody puts it in front of you, I'm just curious, are there certain kinds of content that the agencies publish that's interesting to you, or is it a waste of their time?
Yeah, no, I think that oftentimes I do find myself reading certain case studies or white papers, and I think that's a great place to kind of, I will oftentimes, the first thing I do, and this is probably not, it's pretty common, is that I will start with a Google search about a particular problem or opportunity or project that I'm thinking about. And it's there oftentimes if an agency's done a good job of kind of understanding what their core capability is, or kind of what would be key search terms associated with their agency. They're going to come up, and if they have relevant kind of experience or content about something that I'm looking at, that's very relevant to me. I mean, it's very, very useful to me. And so, again, I think that the amount of, I think there are a number of ways that someone gets to finding an agency partner, and I oftentimes use the internet to do a lot of research beforehand.
I asked Jessica Stafford from AutoTrader this question, and I'll ask you the same question: are there any major pet peeves that you have that agencies, when they approach you, that are just annoying, or that things that they do, are there certain ways that they can instantly turn you off?
I think really depending on the person, but approaching a potential client without really knowing their business, their industry. I mean, we all are very busy, and so I would hope that people would have an understanding. Maybe they heard me interacting with someone at an event, or I would have spoken at an event and they would have heard maybe a particular issue, or maybe they've done some research themselves online looking at our website, or or they just see an opportunity. Well, then if they reach out to me with a particular kind of point of view on a topic, then I find that very, very interesting, and kind of that lets me know that they're insightful, they're thoughtful about wanting to engage me. But not unlike a lot of people, having gone to a number of trade events, I get so many emails every day from different agencies. Some of them fairly clever or creative, but in general, it just doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I'm not going to respond to that particular medium because it's not how I typically do business.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to one other question about agencies, then we'll get into a quick fun question or two. So when you're looking at a potential agency that you might want to work with, is it more important that they have industry or category expertise, for example, in your case, in the commercial carpet business, or is it more important that they don't have expertise necessarily, but they've done a little homework and research to learn about you, where they bring maybe an outside perspective, or is there some blend between the two that's the perfect mix?
So I'm pretty open to any number of conversations when it comes to finding the best fit. And so obviously if someone has B2B experience within the kind of commercial interior finishes world, they worked for a manufacturer. So those are things that absolutely do allow me to know that they have kind of relevant, significant, experience, et cetera. But also, I know that there's so much to learn from other industries, and that's one of the bars I actually do put out there for agencies, is that I expect them to kind of be thought leaders when it comes to integrated marketing. That's their job. That's how they make their paycheck every single day, and also arguably that's how I'm supposed to be making my company more profitable with better marketing. But I also get distracted into lots of other things that have to do with internal kind of situations. So, but I really do look to agencies to bring really best-in-class thoughts to the table, and having really driving or leading a lot of conversations that I can hopefully tag on to. So they don't have to always have that exact experience within commercial flooring. I would prefer more that they are able to connect the dots and understand what is going to be most relevant or going to be most helpful to interface and driving their business forward.
Yep. It sounds like, based on our conversation, that you really are looking to the agency to push you, and you're looking to the agency to bring ideas to you, and you can obviously take them or leave them when they bring them to you, but you're expecting the agency to drive the creation of new ideas that might propel your business. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. While at Delta, we had a great relationship with Dutch Toss out of Boston, and what I liked about them is that literally every couple months they were really trying to sell us on a new idea, a new product or service, and some people might have found that disingenuous or kind of opportunistic. I found it a great time to really think about what it is that they were proposing, and could it in fact be helpful to us as a team. And so I think it's not only necessary, I think it's inspirational, and I think that's I don't and unless someone tries to sell me something that is completely obtuse or not relevant, then you're like, wait a second, what are you up to? But if they're constantly challenging me to think differently about the way we approach the market or the efficiency of our spend, I love that. I think that's really awesome to have that conversation.
Well, I can tell you from having spent many years on the agency side, they appreciate clients like that are looking to be challenged and pushed, and I think that's always a great thing for a client, to have that understanding that it's good to be pushed by the client and by the agency with new ideas. So we appreciate that, I can tell you. So before I let you go, you mentioned your husband and your young son. What's your favorite thing to do with the family when you have free time on the weekends or evenings or whatever?
We love going to parks. I think you have twins who are just a little bit older than William. But what I particularly enjoyed this past year was really seeing William learn kind of how to swim and put his head underneath the water with goggles and hold his breath. I mean, I love the idea of getting to see him in a whole other kind of environment like water. So I went to the pool this weekend with him at a Y, and they were closed, and we were both just like
Devastated.
um, but also at this point he's starting to speak a lot more. So right now it's all about ho ho and Santa Claus and getting to understand what he thinks this kind of phenomenon is that we go through every year at this time. So it's just getting to kind of experience that childhood wonder. That's absolutely the best thing.
Well, I appreciate what you said also about why you were excited to go to work for Interface and make a difference in the world, working for a company that cares about the environment, working for a company that's looking. I know part of the initiative at Interface is, for example, improving education through your product and that kind of thing. I know that's something you're passionate about. So it's exciting to see that when you can combine, your passion at home with your passion at work together, and that's a truly special connection.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and I feel like I'm really, really fortunate to have found a place like Interface that does allow me to really think about making this world a better place, but also doing some good marketing work. So it's a great fit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time, Keith. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, of course, Joe. I appreciate you wanting to chat with me, and I hope some of this information was helpful.
Great. Thanks.
All right. You guys have a good afternoon.